going to get tea. It's Stephanie White. She has had enough of what she has seen from the officials here today. Understandable frustration from Stephanie White.
Couple of possessions in a row where Leah Boston got the fouls. I thought the first one should have been on Howard. And then here, as Petty's in there, Pillman kind of tosses her to the side a little bit, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back there.
What's more devastating for a team, going into game 1 of the playoffs missing 6 key players, or watching referees completely shift the balance of the game against you in the most important moment of your season? That was the exact nightmare scenario the Indiana Fever faced against the Atlanta Dream, and you could feel the anger simmering from players and fans alike. Head coach Stephanie White reached her breaking point and even picked up a technical foul for voicing what everyone in the arena and at home was already shouting. The question now is simple. How does a team held together by nothing but grit, heart, and tape keep pushing through not just injuries, but questionable officiating? Was this simply an unlucky break, or something that looked suspiciously closer to sabotage? Game 1 left fans outraged, players furious, and the entire WNBA buzzing with the same question. Were the Fever flat-out robbed by the refs? Let us know in the comments what you think. The situation with the roster was unbelievable. Caitlin Clark and Chloe Bibby were already seated on the bench, but then you had Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, and Ari McDonald all separated from the group because they couldn't even sit with the team in uniform. Add to that Dearness Dantas, and you realize just how decimated this roster was. Imagine trying to begin a playoff series while missing nearly half your rotation before the ball has even been tossed for the opening tip. That's the impossible hand Indiana was forced to play. And these weren't minor injuries either. Clark was already done for the season with a painful groin injury. Chloe Bibby was sidelined by a serious knee problem. Cunningham and Colson were dealing with knee injuries of their own. McDonald couldn't play because of a foot issue. And as if that wasn't cruel enough, less than 24 hours before the game began, Dantas was ruled out due to concussion protocol. That's 6 players who should have been suiting up, 6 pieces of their rotation stripped away, while they still had to walk into a matchup against a Dream squad at full strength and fully prepared. The Fever tried to turn this mess into a show of unity. Instead of leaving their injured players behind, they decided everyone was traveling, no matter what. For the first time in weeks, all 16 players, healthy or not, were present. On the surface, it was inspiring, a demonstration of togetherness. But it also highlighted just how absurd things had gotten. There weren't even enough seats for everyone on the bench. The front row filled up so quickly that several injured players were forced to sit in a makeshift second row behind their teammates, looking like passengers waiting for their boarding call at an airport. That's when you know the injury bug has hit you hard, when your team physically cannot fit along one sideline. From a medical standpoint, even getting those players cleared to travel was a small victory. Having them there gave the Fever an emotional lift, and more importantly, provided perspective from the sidelines. Think about it, 3 point guards sitting together on the bench, still able to give feedback during huddles, point out defensive reads, and talk their teammates through dead ball situations. They couldn't contribute on the floor, but they were still very much part of the effort. Yet when you compare Indiana's situation to other playoff teams, the contrast becomes staggering. While everyone else could rotate in steady second options and trusted role players, the Fever had no such luxury. They were forced to patch together whatever lineup was left standing, playing with desperation while praying for no further injuries. And yet, against all odds, this group still clawed its way into the postseason for the second year in a row. That resilience alone deserves respect. Even the players themselves joked about the ridiculousness of it all. Sophie Cunningham, stuck in rehab for her knee, laughed that she might as well be part of the medical staff now. It was said half in jest, but it perfectly captured the bizarre state of the Fever season, a starting caliber player reduced to cracking jokes on the sideline while she should have been hitting shots on the floor. That's been Indiana's entire story this year, finding ways to laugh through the pain, refusing to give in despite every setback. And unbelievably, all those absences didn't prevent the Fever from coming out swinging in Game 1. They caught the Dream off guard early, built a lead, and looked too stubborn to acknowledge the mountain they were climbing. But just as it seemed like the impossible was about to happen, the referees stepped in and completely shifted the course of the game. From that point forward, the officiating began to unravel Indiana's momentum. The Fever had jumped to a 15-6 start, with Kelsey Mitchell lighting up the scoreboard and Aaliyah Boston doing what she does best, dominating the boards and locking down the paint. They were playing inspired basketball, proving that even a battered roster could push a fully healthy dream team. But the whistles started to pile up, and the rhythm broke. Suddenly, clean defensive stops were transformed into free throws for Atlanta. Mitchell and her teammates would fight through screens to deny open looks, only for phantom fouls to be called out of thin air. It wasn't just a single questionable call, it became a repeated pattern, one that steadily drained Indiana's energy. Lexi Hull became one of the biggest victims of these phantom fouls. She was whistled for contact on Ryan Howard despite being in textbook defensive position, nowhere near illegal contact. Stephanie White was forced to challenge the call in the first quarter, something coaches almost never want to do that early, and replay confirmed what fans already knew: there was no foul. White later admitted how frustrating it was to burn 2 challenges before halftime, because it proved the referees were flat out missing obvious calls, but she didn't have unlimited challenges to correct their mistakes. Meanwhile, Atlanta's physicality went unchecked. Brianna Jones could throw an elbow, Brittany Griner could shove in the post, and nothing was called. The double standard was glaring. By the fourth quarter, emotions boiled over. White erupted after a sequence where Howard tugged on Shea Petty without a whistle, and the officials quickly slapped her with a technical foul for saying what every Fever fan had been screaming at their TV. Odyssey Sims soon picked up one as well after diving for a loose ball, a play that should have been applauded for hustle but was instead penalized. The entire atmosphere descended into chaos, and the Fever bench looked rattled. In a surreal moment, Caitlin Clark, injured and in street clothes, stepped in to calm her own head coach, gently pulling her back before things escalated further. An injured sophomore acting as the emotional anchor while her coach lost patience with the officiating summed up the bizarre energy of the night. Atlanta thrived in the storm. With Indiana frustrated and reeling from the constant whistles, the Dream seized control in the third quarter and built a lead too steep for the Fever to overcome. And that's the lasting image from Game 1. Not Indiana's resilience. Not Boston's dominance. Not Mitchell's early scoring surge. The headlines instead became all about the referees and the chaos they created.